You're entering Corsi Nation.
Thanks for joining us here on CorsiNation.com. And you can follow us on X at Corsi Jerome 1 and on Substack at JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Also, we're doing these podcasts every weekday, and please continue to join us. This is our flagship, CorsiNation.com. We decided to revive it and get it going again. I've got several stories I want to cover today, and I want to do one on the economics right away. Now, this is a story that's extremely important, and I doubt if very many people are really going to get the full meaning of it, but I'm going to explain it. Okay, so CNBC is covering that the government, United States government, is now engaging in credit default swaps. Okay, now this is a very disturbing story. Most people have no idea what a credit default swap is. It's what they call a derivative. Derivatives are very complex bets on things that can happen, largely with interest payments or debt ceilings or debt that is somehow or other not going to be paid because of the fact that the underlying entity is largely bankrupt. So what's happening is that investors are getting, across the world, and these are people who buy treasury bonds, other governments, for instance, that the United States government is going to struggle to pay our debt. Okay, so I mean that's a serious concern, because we now have our debt is up to 36 trillion, about $37 trillion. That's where it's going to hit. And this has just been under Biden. The government's been printing money for Congress, NGOs, foreign governments to steal without any concern about it. $1 trillion lost here, $1 trillion we can't account for here, $1 trillion the Pentagon doesn't know what happened to it. Nobody cares, because it's funny money, and those are the inside. Just Biden and the Biden family was good at this. It's completely criminal, evil. What they would do is they would say, okay, let's go to Ukraine and we'll get Congress to pass a $1.5 billion aid package for Burisma, the energy company in which Biden is on the board, getting $50,000 a month, which he probably blew in cocaine. And so the government gives Ukraine 1.5 or 1.9 or whatever billion dollars, and it goes into private bank in Ukraine, which then has a money laundering scheme, and the money is siphoned off into places like Bermuda and Cyprus and other money laundering entities, Vanuatu, who knows where they put it, and it's stolen. So it's gone. What ended up in the pockets of all the Zelensky oligarchs that he's funding through having war with Russia. Okay, so the money being stolen, the United States government has pushed our Congress, which is as wealthy as you can get. Every billionaire, millionaire in Congress ought to be investigated for bribery. Okay, so with the cost of the U.S. government debt rising rapidly, we're over $1 trillion now in our interest payments every year. And this is at a rapid rate accumulating. So the spreads, or the premiums, on our one-year credit default swaps are up 52 basis points. That's 0.5%. That's a Wednesday from 16 basis points at the start of the year. And that's alarming, okay, because credit default swaps are like insurance for the investors. The buyers pay a fee to protect themselves in case the government of the United States can't pay its debt. And the cost of insuring the U.S. debt goes up because we have to pay more interest on the bonds we're selling in order to get anybody to buy them. So the spreads on the credit default swaps with the 5-year tenor at 50 basis points compared with 30 basis points at the beginning of the year is a lot more money people are paying to double down on the fact that the United States government is broke, bankrupt. Moody's just downgraded the United States credit rating. Okay, now we had a story yesterday about how 1 in 4 Americans is maybe employed, but they're not making enough money to pay their bills. And the middle class has been devastated by Obama Biden. And that was a plan. Remember, these people want to destroy. And Chris, if you'll display my book on the truth about neo-Marxism, uh, uh, Maoism, neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. I made the point in that book that the communist ideology has evolved to the point where it's completely destructive, and it wants to destroy the culture of capitalism. So it emphasizes sex, okay, as a way to break up the nuclear family. There's been a carefully architected plan of the communists to destroy America, which goes back into, when the Russian Revolution started in 1917, 19, that period of time. And it's continued through the 50s. There were Senate hearings on it, the House Un-American Activities Committee. I covered it in this book. And now it's happening. Chaos, anarchy we have, and it's just being reported over Memorial Day, these black riots that have been occurring in Carnival cruises, of course they don't get reported because the mainstream media narrative is only that white supremacists are the terrorists. We don't talk about black violence. We don't talk about black crime. We don't talk about anything that's negative to their narrative, which is a lie. And they have to strain themselves to lie. Okay, so what I'm saying is, and I'm going to go immediately here today to Swiss America, because anybody who understands what I'm talking about, okay, this neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, anarchy is a very important book to read. Okay, the other important book to read is the one that I have out from, it's free actually, from Swiss America. It's how this coming global crash is going to cause an historic gold rush. And we're into it right now. Gold today is at $3,300 an ounce, $3,303 an ounce. And silver's at $33.43 an ounce. Okay, now I started talking about this, gold was at about $1,800 an ounce. And silver was under $32 an ounce. I'm telling you, gold is going to go to $6,000 an ounce. Maybe not immediately, but certainly sometime next year. And silver is going to go to probably close to $40 an ounce. Now, what I'm encouraging you to do is to look at the self-directed IRAs. Self-directed IRAs, which Swiss America can set up so that you can own some gold in your IRAs and your 401ks. Okay, self-directed IRAs. And by the way, to get a copy of this book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create a Historic Gold Rush, to talk to Swiss America about setting up a self-directed IRA, call this number, 1-800-519-6268. Write it down, 1-800-519-6268. Okay, so a self-directed IRA allows you to buy gold and silver and hold it in your IRA or 401k or any tax-deferred account you've got. And the gold and silver will appreciate while the dollar is going to depreciate, and while your mutual funds, either in stocks or bonds that you're holding in your IRA, and most of you are, especially if you went to a broker or an insurance agent or whomever to set up your IRA, they put you in mutual funds. And that's easy, but it's a losing dog because you're paying fees on those mutual funds. And you could swap it, yes, but you go from stocks into bonds, your bonds are going to be losing money too. Okay, now if you take a look at the stock market, I've been constantly warning people about the stock market. Stock market was down 244 points yesterday. It was trading at 42,098. Okay, now the stock market's going to start trading under 40,000. We're just at the very beginning of this crisis. Europe is going to net zero. Europe is a complete mess. These countries, again, are lying. They're in never land. They're not acknowledging that the Muslim invasion has simply destroyed the culture of these European countries. And Germany now, with this new chancellor, is gung-ho and supporting Zelensky in the war. Insanity. They're saying they're going to raise 40,000 troops and send them to Ukraine, and they're going to allow long-range missiles to be fired into Russia by Ukraine. It's insanity. If the European Union thinks it can support a standing army in Ukraine, they're nuts. They can't afford it. They'll be bankrupt in 2 or 3 months. They'll be not able to meet their debt obligations. Okay, and that comes winter energy prices are going to go high in these net zero countries. Germany cut off the use of its nuclear energy because they don't want to destroy the planet with carbon dioxide. Another completely nutcase idea of the left. Carbon dioxide is not going to cause the earth to burn up and you're all going to die. Unless, of course, you believe the communist propaganda. The Democratic Party is a communist party, and now it's become a anti-American party. Okay, Swiss America, 1-800-519-6268. Take a look at CorsiNation.com. Pull down our sponsors. Pull down Swiss America. There's a lot of free reports. I've just written a whole new free report on the fact that these Basel III rules are going to allow banks to fully evaluate gold according to its market value and hold it as an asset. Okay, so Swiss America's got reports you can get. If you become a client, you can take advantage of this one-time offer on these Walking Liberty $50. You can get 250 of them at about their value in silver. You can own some silver much more cheaply than you can own gold. Okay, there's the Walking Liberty $50 offer. Fill out these forms. Swiss America will contact you. 1-800-519-6268. Do it. Because if you don't believe me that the economy's in a fragile position, well, the stock market's at 42,000. Look how good it is. We made all this money because the stock market, we made money because Biden and Obama have just used the Treasury as a piggy bank, and they've artificially stimulated the economy to keep it looking like it's going. While in the meantime, the middle class was crushed by inflation, and everybody's taking low-paying jobs because the good-paying jobs were overseas. And Trump is redoing this. He's getting tariffs. He's trying to get the manufacturer to come back home. And, of course, we've got all these Soros judges who block him. And there's solutions to that. Number one, introduce a law to reorganize the federal courts, get it passed by Congress, and all these judges who now think they've got lifetime positions, thank you, Soros, can be fired because their courts are gone. Well, the judge cannot have a lifetime position in a court that doesn't exist. And the only constitutionally mandated court is the Supreme Court. Okay, so the economics, I think, are a major focus today. I want to shift into that. And, of course, I want you to comment here in a minute. But the next story has to do with Doge and the fact that we are seeing with Doge Musk is going to go back to the private economy. He was a special employee, and his time clock has run out. Okay, so it's not that Musk is mad or Musk didn't get what he wanted. In fact, the next story I want to cover on the Doge and these Doge cuts, the GOP lawmakers are going to be under pressure to codify the Doge cuts, and the Senate is probably going to take an axe to a lot of the spending that was in the House bill to get it passed in the House. Okay, now I think Musk did a magnificent job. Okay, what Musk did was he identified spending that supports initiatives that are prohibited by the Constitution. I'm reading now from an article that was published in Clash Daily, and it's by Wes Walker. Doge Cuts, Why They Can't Be Part of the, this big, beautiful bill, and what Trump is doing instead. Okay, so Doge identified all kinds of spending that were prohibited by the Constitution that were official policy, or like DEI, or expensive, massive gifts, like this $2 billion, this grifting operation, $2 billion cash cow that Stacey Abrams was getting ready to sink her teeth into. There's ridiculous examples of foreign aid that did nothing to advance legitimate national policies, everything to advance, quote, the creepy left-wing agenda, or serve as little more than an elaborate money laundering process to reward friends and benefactors. Thank you, benefactors. Thank you, Bidens. The foreign aid that was given out to Ukraine, many examples of that. Doge has canceled untold needless news subscriptions, phone lines, software accounts, government credit cards, offices. And by the way, the credit cards were used on parties and strippers and whatever else the government employees, all these government employees crying, they're losing their jobs. We've only fired about 10% of the federal workforce. We ought to fire 90% of it. And of course, these federal judges say you can't close down the Department of Education. You're going to have to pay PBS. They have a right to be paid. No, they don't have a right to be paid. There's no mandate in the Constitution for an education department. There's no mandate to keep these employees. Oh, well, we're SES. We're special employees. You can't touch us. Yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll just move your whole damn department to, the Mojave Desert and see how well you like it. You're free to keep your job, SES. Just go to the Mojave Desert. We'll give you a Quonset hut and an air cooler. You like wind and solar, we'll give you all the solar panels you want and all the wind. We're going to ship all that stuff to you because it's just junk. Okay, so this debt clock now is at almost $37 trillion net. That's our debt. It's now $36,909,000. Our federal budget deficit is $2 trillion. Okay, and half a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon we're talking about a lot of money. Okay, so there's no incentive for Congress, including the rhinos, to cut spending. They can increase spending. They can pass it out to their constituents. And this big, beautiful bill coming through the House is just packed with spending that could yet be cut. Okay, so the Doge cuts have to be on the discretionary spending, the federal budget. Under the Senate budget rules, you cannot cut discretionary spending in a reconciliation bill. So Doge cuts are going to have to be done in the Senate, and basically through rescissions packages, we're taking back money. And the big, beautiful bill is not an annual budget bill. It doesn't fund the departments of the government. It funds our agencies and our federal programs. It doesn't fund those. Instead, it includes single largest welfare reform in American history, along with the largest tax cut and reform in American history, the most aggressive energy exploration. And it also sets the basis for redoing the financial system in the United States. Okay, that the whole idea is that we're going to ultimately have to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve, why are we paying? Under modern monetary theory, with the dollar is nothing more than a fiat currency. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by anything. Just spend it, spend it, spend it, print it. Well, why are we paying interest to the federal government, to the Federal Reserve, which is not, it's a private bank. It's not part of the federal government. Why are we doing that when we could just print the money in Treasury? John Kennedy realized that. It was part of the reason John Kennedy was killed. Okay, so Chris, why don't you come on? I've been talking about economic issues here and Doge. And what I think is that Trump is now getting hold of the federal government and reducing its size. And it's going to take some time. But I think steps are taken that are going to be painful. But we've got to get the economy back on private terms where the investment comes back into the economy. We stop having all these food stamp programs that also just get wasted on food that's going to kill people. And it's again another boondoggle for the Democrats to keep their constituents happy and fed and well off on the federal dole. Chris.
Well, that side's all about gaining power at this point. What's happening right now is something nobody really wanted a long time ago. Nobody wants it now, but it has to happen. A financial reset, something where the revenue has to come from somewhere else. You can't keep squeezing the taxpayer. A lot of states, a lot of blue states are still doing that, but the federal government has to learn. And same with these states. You cannot keep squeezing the taxpayer. Secondly, what's going to happen with, excuse me. And then secondly, what's going to happen with spending? You have Republicans, and rightfully so, some of them saying, no, this bill does not go far enough in cutting spending. Well, others are saying, hey, well, it's still a gradual situation. We can't do everything right off the bat because it's already going to hurt to start with. Maybe we need to ease up a little bit. Somewhere in the middle is probably going to work, but there has to be some serious discussion as to where revenue and spending is going to have to change.
Well, we're into a cycle right now where we're going to see some painful steps be taken, and there's going to be battles with the courts, and that's going to go on. There's going to be battle with the states. The states are going to want to protect these sanctuary cities. Tom Homan is saying we're going to move into the sanctuary cities. There's going to be some governors and some mayors who are going to be under indictment for protecting illegals. They're violating federal law. And we're going to be especially going after the criminals. You can't deport 10 million people who are here and trying to live legitimate lives here, even though they're illegally here. They were opened with the borders. But the problem with the borders being opened is it was done by the Obama criminals. And, Biden, and we've covered this with Mike McCormick in his book, It's Almost Insurmountable Evil, where, the Catholic Church, which was making billions of dollars on, working to make sure the illegal immigrants were in the country and were taken care of. Okay, so that money's cut. But the Catholic Church with Archbishop McCarrick and Donahue, who was chief of staff for Obama, made a deal with Honduras. They created this partnership for progress. They put several $billions in Honduras. Of course, the president of Honduras and his son, who then became president after the president went to jail, were part of the Sinaloa drug cartel, and they were making a deal. The whole deal that Biden and the Catholic Church wanted was to get this huge wave of immigration coming from and through Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras in Central America into the United States. 300,000 unaccompanied minors brought across the border and picked up by child slavery dealers. It's completely outrageous. It's completely insane. And it was done with abandon. Okay, so now we're in the process of Trump cracking down on all this with Homan and others. And there was a big raid by Kash Patel earlier in May that did not get reported, in which they did go in and pick up child sex traders. They arrested a number of them, some very prominent positions in government. Okay, because again, the CIA is involved in all the money, and all this money gets into the banking system. TD Bank just got fined $3 billion. Okay, I've got the U.S. Department of Justice right here. They said that on October 10th, 2024, the Justice Department announced that TD Bank, which is Toronto Dominion, the 10th largest bank in the U.S., pled guilty to money laundering. Okay, and what they were doing, they caught the credit card scheme where they were putting billions of dollars into Democratic Party candidates using other people's credit cards. They take your identity, your name, and your social security number. They got a credit card in your name. They ran money through that and put it in the account of a candidate that was a Democratic candidate, a woke candidate, to promote them. That money came from the border, Sinaloa drug cartel, Chinese government with fentanyl, Chinese government money, through the fentanyl into the TD Bank, through NGOs. And how they got the money out of the TD Bank. It wasn't really the credit card scam that was the trillions. It was buying houses and then getting $1 billion loans on the houses that were never booked. It was a huge money laundering scam, and we're breaking the whole thing open, and we'll be doing more about that in the future. But okay, so TD Bank, one of Canada's largest lenders, agreed to pay more than $3 billion and pled guilty to criminal charges in the United States after allowing drug cartels and other criminals to transfer hundreds of millions of dollars. Actually, they transferred billions in illicit funds. Okay, so prosecutors said the bank operated with inadequate guards. Well, they were intentionally money laundering. This isn't an accident. It was official policy, just made to be deniable by the bank management so they wouldn't go to prison. Of the inadequate guards against money laundering for nearly a decade, failing to act even when the staff flagged obvious cases of abuse, such as a customer making daily deposits of $1 million in cash daily. Okay. I mean, come on. This is money laundering by major banks is done every day. It's part of their business. It's very profitable. And we're going to go to crack it down. Okay, so I want to cover the next thing. So Doge, Musk is leaving, but don't think that Musk is leaving after he failed. He succeeded. Okay, let's talk about Ukraine and the Middle East. Donald Trump is, mad at Putin he's mad at everybody right now because, Russia and Ukraine won't stop killing each other. And you can't have peace while they're killing each other. So Trump's saying, stop the fighting for a while so we can negotiate. Well, then Zelensky goes to Europe, gets pumped up by the Europeans, and gets more money and more guarantees of money from Germany, more money to steal, so he gets to stay alive a little longer. He's a comic. Okay, he goes and buys a shopping spree, buys $1 million in jewelry for his wife. Go spend $1 million, honey. I don't care. We got plenty of cash around here. Got plenty of cocaine around here. Take some cocaine and go buy yourself some jewelry. And then he buys mansions around the world, probably got some in the United States. Well, if he doesn't continue delivering to the oligarchs, they'll kill him. So he's around wearing his uniform, playing his comic role on TV as if he were president. And we'll be in World War III pretty soon if this guy is not contained. Because Putin's about had it. And those around Putin are going to get hardline and they're going to demand that Putin get more aggressive. Okay, now it's the same right now with Israel and Gaza. Israel's going to come in and crush Gaza. They're going to crush Hamas. Well, of course, the mainstream media is saying, oh no, Trump is pulling out support from Netanyahu. Netanyahu's in trouble. Netanyahu is in no trouble at all. Right now, the state of Israel feels an existential threat that Iran's only weeks away from having a nuclear weapon that could destroy Tel Aviv. Okay, so what Trump is saying is Trump called off, he acknowledged that he called off Israel from making a strike, a massive military attack on Iran. Okay, so he confirmed Wednesday, this is, I guess, last week. The story is being reported May 28th. Or maybe that he reported it even today. But at any rate, he talked to Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu and said, do not strike Iran with a military attack right now. Okay, so they're trying to say, oh, Trump is backing off in support for Israel. No, listen to what Trump said. Trump's saying he wants to try to settle this with negotiation. He wants a strong document rather than a military attack. I want this document of agreement to be strong, where we can go in with inspectors into Iran. We can take whatever we want. We can blow up whatever we want at nuclear facilities, but nobody's going to get killed. We can blow up a nuclear lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up. Two ways of doing things. I told Netanyahu this would be inappropriate to do it right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment, Trump said. Could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal. So Trump's trying to get deals peacefully. He's a peacemaker. Well, the mainstream media doesn't want peace. They want war because they make money on war. They get paid by the Pentagon to lie. Okay, but Trump is on top of the situation. Okay, Trump is on top of the situation with Putin. He's just got to convince everybody to stop the shooting for a while so that calmer heads can get together and can negotiate real solutions to these problems. Okay, now, essentially, the leftist like this Jake Taper, who complete wacko like Joe Scarborough. These guys are completely nutcases, indoctrinated by the Marxism of the Democratic Party, to not realize that they're now becoming traitorous. Okay, so the idea of a Jake Taper, now it's coming out, and Gateway Pundit is doing a very good job of handling this right now. Gateway Pundit is pointing out that, in fact, it's clear that who was running the White House was a group that was close to Joe Biden, and the group, probably using this auto pen, committed crimes, and included Pocahontas. Okay, so she was in there running the White House, and again, these people like Doug, the people who are running the Democratic Party at the very top were in there essentially using the auto pen to sell pardons, etc. Okay, now the whole scheme of a group of unelected officials running the White House with the auto pen and not even informing Biden, who was probably not so cognitively impaired he wouldn't have understood it if they did explain it to him, that these are crimes. You can't have a president who's incompetent. Like Obama said, just give me a president who's a figurehead, and I'll make all the decisions. I'll be the force behind it, and I'll have my third presidency. Okay, so what you're finding is that it's coming out, and various people are exposing this right now. The Gateway Pundit is doing a good job of following it. This David Hogg of the DNC was caught in an undercover video admitting that Biden's staff ran the White House. Okay, so they've identified a whole group of people who were involved in making these decisions, many of whom you've never heard of. David Hogg, the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, and Detarian Jones, a former staffer of the Biden White House Office of Digital Strategy. Okay, so this is the center of influence around Joe Biden's chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, Bernal, and this close-knit inner circle. So when off camera, Hogg said Joe Biden's chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, had an enormous amount of power, emphasizing that the bigger issue was not what was, it was the inner circle around Biden. So these revelations point to a hidden power structure that operated behind the scenes, raising questions about whether Bernal was this kind of shadowy Wizard of Oz type figure who wielded an enormous amount of power. Nobody knew he was doing it because he was doing it anonymously, with Biden incompetent. Okay, the statement by the Project Veritas brought out on Hogg, it says it was an open secret. Okay, well, it's not open, it's not a secret anymore. And the Trump administration is on to it. And I think there will be ultimately even treason charges on this. So the Trump administration is taking steps to investigate things of this nature. And soon there will be, I believe, indictments. Now, I'm believing it's because I'm seeing some results, like the raids that Kash Patel did to get a hold of all this whole group of child predators. We see that Jeanine Pirro was just sworn in to be acting U.S. Attorney in Washington. She's got a number of cases, and Trump is taking serious steps. For instance, he's saying that foreign students who are here from countries that are not favorable to America, or who the countries deny free speech to Americans, UK is a good example. Okay, then we're going to just eliminate the foreign student program. So the Trump administration froze more than $2.7 billion in multi-year research grants and $60 million in contracts for Harvard last month. Okay, and that they're cracking down on the use of student visas. Department of Homeland Security informed Harvard that will no longer be allowed to issue student visas for international applicants. That decision follows Harvard's failure to supply documentation confirming that it adheres to U.S. laws prohibiting discriminations in the name of DEI, toleration of campus violence in favor of Hamas, and collaboration with authoritarian foreign regimes, including the Communist Chinese Party. Trump's also taking steps through the Department of Commerce to put sanctions on U.S. companies that deal with China. Okay, Grassley released a whole set of documents on Russiagate to expose this role played by Nellie Ohr, who is a Russian specialist, and she was providing the Fusion GPS contractor the Steele dossier with false information that got built into the into the Steele dossier, which was the basis of the Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Nellie Ohr, the wife of fired DOJ official Bruce Ohr, was criminally referred to the Justice Department in 2009 by House Republicans after hundreds of new emails surfaced contradicting her previous statements to Congress. Well, maybe Kash Patel will do something about that. Okay, now these documents are released. It's clear that she lied to Congress. That's a criminal violation. She needs to be prosecuted. And Grassley posted on X a nearly declassified FBI document. Okay, the confirms that Fusion GPS contractor Nellie Ohr lied to Congress about her involvement in Crossfire Hurricane. Thank you, FBI Director Kash Patel, for helping Congress uncover the truth and taking steps toward the greater goal of transparency and accountability and hopefully prosecuting these criminals. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. Chris, any final comments before we wrap up?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and it's a little worrisome as we talk about the financial reset we might have to take here. It looks like Donald Trump is really working hard to keep these World War III from elevating. You have Hegseth over in Singapore talking with leaders of the Indo-Pacific. That's something that's a little under the radar right now, but the tensions are pretty high over there. As you know, China was kind of sailing around or trying to assert its maritime dominance over Taiwan and the Philippines in recent
South China
recent
Sea
months.
as well. That
South China
whole
Sea. So it's interesting to see how the Trump administration is working diplomacy to try to keep things from escalating.
well, we've had too many wars, and we're too close to World War III, nuclear weapons being used, and preventing that is high on the agenda of Donald Trump. And people are think, well, he's soft on Putin or he's not helping Netanyahu sufficiently to get rid of Hamas. It's not the case. Trump wants it done a particular way, and he wants to exhaust the ability to get people to stop fighting, like he did in the Pakistan-India dispute, which quickly was defused. And once the killing stops, the killing just creates more desire to have a revenge attack and to get even, and then the people who are attacked want a revenge attack to get even. It just escalates. You got to stop the killing in order to get sense. And Donald Trump, as a negotiator, knows this. You've got to reach a point where people say, okay, we're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to give up some of the things we want to achieve because we're not going to get there. And then you may have the potential to reach deals that prevent escalation, which leads to more killing and ultimately could lead to thermonuclear war. And Donald Trump, I think, is very skillful in understanding this, as he is skillful in wielding the bureaucracy to make sure we get things accomplished. I think the reorganization of the FBI is underway. I think we'll have task forces appointed, and I think we were going to see things including on voter integrity and other issues that are going to be addressed very quickly. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now, Chris. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Wednesday. It's May 29th, 2025. A lot coming out in the Kennedy assassination. We're going to do more on that as well. Thank you for joining us here on CorsiNation.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. In the end, God always wins. And I'm confident God will win in all this too. I hope it doesn't take Armageddon for God to win. It could. But if we follow the advice of the Bible and we look at 2 Chronicles 7:14, if we get on our knees and pray and ask God to forgive us for letting all this evil get to where it is today in the world and in the United States, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. And we need God's intervention more than ever. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.